Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. As you can see, I'm using a new device right now, or a new thing. It's a StreamYard. I wanted to make sure everything was working, and I have to wait for my sound to come up and stuff like that, so I can see what's actually going on. For my sound to come up and stuff. I'm gonna pause that there and take a look, and I think it's working fine. I'm just hey, Mgtow. Hey, Mgtows. So I'm just playing around with the StreamYard now, and come back, and we'll probably have a guest in, and if anybody wants to come in and talk and chat on a Saturday night, that'd be great. I'd love that. This enables me the opportunity to bring guests in now, which is nice, and there's little features and stuff on it too, and like that. And they're pretty cool. And so this is the new YouTube Hangouts, and I just have to get used to it and do things like that. So I was going to invite. I'm trying to get Shingles in, and me and Shingles are going to have a chat, and if he comes in, or we'll see if people are seeing it. Obviously, Jeff knows it's here. I don't know who's in or how many people are going to watch, or if it's going to get actually broadcasted out there or anything. I just don't know. But hey, it'll be fun to do anyways. So so today I think I'm gonna. I watched a disturbing. I watched a disturbing. Um, Broadcast today, and I really don't want to say Jeff knows who it is, but but he was giving out really bad Mgtow advice, and some of the Mgtow advice that was given out was don't do well in school, screw college, and that and. Man, that is so anti-Mgtow. Mgtows are bosses, man. We take hold of everything, and we try to take hold of our lives and get everything in control. And part of that is going to school, taking some courses, taking some classes, going to college in that sense, and doing things up and beyond what most people would do. Let me see. That's from Joey. Yes, it's a Hoka fanboy. Yeah, yeah. So. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And some of the young kids are asking, what do I do in high school and everything? And he was giving bad advice to him. He says just screw off and look to get all the girls you can and that stuff. And that's horrible advice. My advice to people that are high school age and completing that thing, or going into high school especially, is hello, cave creature. Get the best education you can, get it as fast as you can, and that stuff. And that's pretty much about Mgtow. If I had to do high school again, you know what I would do? I would take summer classes. I would skip every study hall, and I'd fill them with classes, and I would double up on classes if I could. I would take the maximum amount, and that way I would graduate 2 years early, and take that 2 years to start either a trade or do that. That's the way a Mgtow do it. And the Mgtows, the younger Mgtows. Hello, Taryn. Hello, cave creature. I'm trying out the new StreamYard today, and it seems to be working fine, except that there's a delay about a minute, and then I have to get used to that. But what I see on my dashboard is working. Hopefully, I'm going to have Shingles in here. Shingles wanted to talk a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about the shape of Mgtow and everything, and how to and Mgtow stuff, Mgtow men. It's a beautiful Saturday. Well, it's not really a beautiful Saturday. It was kind of on and off sunny today. I went for a couple bike rides and doing my Mgtow thing. I was just cruising on my bike and like, F you people. I don't really do that. But I did want to try out this stream, and that's what I'm doing today. So we're going to talk a little bit about Mgtow and everything. I was also looking into a book. I was going to order a book, and it was the owner of Sharon, not Sharon. What's her name? Is the owner of Facebook's Zuckerberg, Sharon Zuckerberg's book, and she talks about misogyny and she talks about men. And I was shocked that I didn't see this book for for a number for it was been out since last year. It got published last year. Come back, come back, come back. There we go. You got to pull the world back in. Oh, and if you didn't, I didn't do my my thing today. Okay, man. I don't know if this is go your own way, and that's what's important in life. Go your own way. I'm losing a little clarity on that, I know. But Sharon Zuckerberg has a book on the history of females and philosophy and history. She's a history major, and she introduces this. She says that all the red pill guys were delving back into Platonian history and stuff like that. And I really don't see that. And they were using it as a tool for misogyny, and the big argument with it, and I find this in the big argument when I find this in the science of philosophy, and I find this in the science of history, the philosophy of history, and the philosophy of maybe paleontology and stuff like that, or whatever women are trying to get into. There's always something hidden in the from them. I look back at Mary Wollstonecraft. She wrote the book Mary. She was probably one of the first feminists, and she wrote a book, and then the equivalent to Congress at that time in England brought her before, and they wanted to talk about this book that she had written called Mary, and nobody at that time was holding her up with this feminist book, one of the first feminist books. And then I look at some of the queens of that time and that era from 1400s and everything, and nobody said they couldn't write a book. Nobody said that they couldn't put their philosophy out there. Nobody ever said that. But nowadays in modernity, with Sharon Zuckerberg's book, she says that somehow there was this hidden misogyny in back of all history, which she wasn't there. And it's just an intuitive feeling that the men weren't allowed. It's like you weren't allowed to have a pencil and a piece of paper. You weren't allowed to write down your thoughts back then. And I I find that to be absurd. But when we work up to the 1960s and everything, when the philosophy of science came out, and the so-called hulks in the 70s, about feminism entering sciences and everything. And from there, it worked out to what we have now, feminism entering tech, which is science, tech and science. They say tech, but it's tech and science is interchangeable. And there's a philosophy behind these things. And one of the things that all the original feminists that entered the philosophy of science, and Kuhn was talking about it, and Popper was talking about it, and Feyerabend was talking about it. And at that time, they're the most postmodern. We're talking about postmodernism and the excuse for it at that time was there was the same thing. There was some hidden entity that was not allowing misogyny, this hidden entity, this intuitive feeling that there was some hidden entity that was keeping women from picking up a pen and a piece of paper or taking the degrees. And the problem within the 60s was no women were going to tech studies. No women were going into sciences or mathematics. Very few of them were. I think Einstein's little cousin was one of the few people that I knew of women at that time that were mathematicians, and but no one was keeping it from me. You can take the classes, you can do that, and then this argument boils out into the modern age now, 2004 to 2019. Now we've been having the same argument about feminism entering tech world. No one's holding them back. That's what I was saying. No one was ever holding them back from Plato's time to now. And I look at a couple good I look at Hannah Arendt. I look at the best example of this would probably be Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand in the 30s and the 40s, in a time of total misogyny. Like Ayn Rand picked up a pencil and some books and started writing the philosophy of objectivism. So when you look at that, nobody held her back. Nobody was saying you could not do this. And a matter of fact, it seems to me that it was very different than what people were saying. What the women, the feminists, were saying is they embraced it. The world embraced it. The scientific and community actually did what was called gynocentrism at that time, and they were over exuberant about Hannah Arendt and Ayn Rand with these philosophies. Now, Hannah Arendt doesn't have a philosophy. She was just involved with Eichmann. She has the philosophy of one of the first things, if you read her books, you notice it is a philosophy, but she doesn't take no credit for a philosophy. But Ayn Rand did, and it was very successfully. It's done. Mary Wollstonecraft wrote very successfully. Mary Shelley wrote very successfully. What if Mary Shelley would say, "Oh, the men aren't going to let me do this. The men, somehow there's this hidden misogyny in the air, and the men aren't going to let me do this." And that's an intuitive feeling. Sometimes you have to bust through things in your life, and it just happens that everyone's obsessed with useless soliloquy. yeah, 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 and it gets under my skin, even from the 60s and 70s with the science of philosophy. There was this hidden. There's this hidden misogyny back, and we talked about misogyny and what misogyny was, and I say misogyny is simply your opinion, and because it's an intuitive feeling. If someone says you're a misogynist, all they're really doing in this world is they're having an intuitive feeling about your nature towards their nature, and that's an opinion. People will say Joe's misogynistic. I'm not really misogynist. I don't really care what goes on in the world of feminism. I don't really care what the world are doing. I'm doing myself. I'm doing all this. Here, I like all this. All of this is mine. All of this I do. And I do it for one person. I do it for me. And I don't get validation from what somebody says about what I do. And that's part of being a Mgtow. I don't gain validation from other people's opinions or anything. I don't need all that. So whatever they think, whatever they want to say about me in that fashion, that's just an intuitive feeling about, or a biased opinion. And biased opinions are dangerous if most, and I think that's where most feminists have biased opinions on Mgtows and men's rights. Now, there are some blatant misogynists around here, and that's what Rick was talking one day. He says, I think Rick RP, he was saying, I fear that one day Mgtow will be simply blatant misogyny, and it is. It's become a lot, and it gives some of the men the permission to do that frat boy garbage and everything. Let me see if Shingles is going to come in or not. He's probably setting up his account. And so now I was supposed to have him in. I wanted to try the 2 split screens or the little screen or something and try some of the features that they offer me in StreamYard. And like a fine wine, Joe breaks into song any second now. I wish. Oh, so it's a Saturday afternoon, and I just started to come by and talk a little bit and talk about Mgtow and talk about a book that I had missed it. So I'm going to order it, and I was going to order it on Kindle and sit and read it one day, and that was Sharon Zuckerberg's book on the history of history and how they somehow feminism was kept out. And I would like someone to really quantify for me during these things, and these historians, and Sharon Zuckerberg has a PhD in history, so I would expect that she shares with me how exactly men did that. Was it through the male gaze or a look? Or maybe it was like how exactly men kept women out of science, philosophy, writing, and all those things. I would like to know that. I would like to see proof of it too. When we talk about the philosophy of history is what she's talking about. Anytime you say something in a book, you're up for critique, and her book's up for critique now. And really, I haven't heard any really any philosophers critique it. The first thing I would ask is, where is this proof of misogyny? Can you show me some government letters where the men sat around in some back rooms and we were smoking cigars and drinking scotch, and we're like, and they have the video of this back in the 1700s of us just like making plans on how to keep women out of writing books and science and philosophy. I mean, can you even show me a letter or somewhere in a book? There's a general attitude at that time that they didn't would that would lead any reasonable person to say, since they don't, what's keeping them back is maybe they don't like it. They don't like writing books. They don't really like philosophy. They don't do those things. Women don't do those things. And I would say, well, that's fine. That doesn't mean that we're holding them back. That just means like the college thing. If you don't enter the classes, the tech classes, don't complain because you didn't have an opportunity to, because no one ever took that opportunity from them. That was Simpson's paradox. That was the study at Berkeley. Then they said, "Oh, these classes we're not invited into these classes." And then they did the study. They found out women had seven basic seven opportunities in college, seven different ways to go, and men had three, and all three of those were tech. And so it was actually Simpson's paradox is about the people that have the most opportunity are generally the ones that are complaining the most, and the people that generally have restricted opportunity have hope. And that's men. Men have hope. We take these tech courses and we hope that we become engineers and that sort of stuff. And most of the time it works out for us. And we have trade options to do those applied technologies. You like being a guy. I like being a guy too, CJ. CJ says he likes being a guy. I like being a guy. Yeah, it's good to be a man. It's good. It's good to know what you are. So we went back. I was watching some of the videos this morning of the podcasters, and there was one held by the dashboard lights. He was horrible, and he was giving such bad advice, to a young man. I just felt the need to say, hey, no, that's not how you do it. And I have a great example. My son is a great example of how to do things right, and. And he did everything right. He finished school early. He took some tech classes and, got out of school. The day he got out of school, he was already making plenty of money and working and everything went fine. And that's because he did it the right way. He did it like a boss, like a Mgtow, like a boss. And that's the way Mgtows do things. We do things like a boss. Oh, whoops, just woke up, fell asleep. Yeah, Shingle says he just woke up. I was feeling it's midnight. Oh, and I'm feeling it. You need some company over. Are you on your own, Chief? I forgot that it was midnight. If you want to step in a few minutes, that would be cool. Yeah, he's wondering if he wants to step into the podcast now. And I was just, oh, sure. I would like to send some links out to some people since I can now. Hangouts, I wish they wouldn't have done away with Hangouts, but I don't know. This seems pretty cool and it works very well. And I can send links now. So I can start bringing guests in, and I might start looking forward to doing that Sunday podcast that I do so well at in the morning Sunday podcaster. And I might start that up if I can find a couple guys to come in and talk and do those things. I'm used to be more active on that, but those times are long gone. But I'd like to get the Sunday Travcast going again. And it's just Hangouts they got rid of Hangouts, and that put a crimp on it. Yeah. Go Saints. Yeah, Sandberg did do a TED talk, and that's the mantra that they they say is somehow there was this hidden misogyny that kept them back. And then I look at the examples of writers. Uh, I look at the examples of Nobel Prize writers, and we have two of them in this area. We had two of them. One just died. She wrote The Bluest Eye, which was a Nobel Prize winner, and there was a school around the corner here that there was a poet Nobel Prize winner, and nobody held those. And when I look at their history, when I look at what they are, nobody held them back. There wasn't this evil hidden misogyny. And if anybody can show me that, and how men accomplished holding women back from writing and science and doing research and stuff like that, I would like to see it personally. But I'm pretty old, and I have never seen examples of this hidden misogyny that everybody talks about that was holding women back. And I think there's a lot of things that holds a person back in general. And I've experienced this in my life, being when you want to go into a career and everything, you have doubt and fear of failure. Men usually fail at a few things before they decide what they want to do, and then men go through cycles. And Winninger talks about this. Men go through these cycles of I'll put so much time on this, and if I fail at it, I'm not afraid of that failure, and I'm not going to let that failure keep me back from doing things. But like this stream, I had to just do it, go on StreamYard, learn, very simple, and do it. If I let the fear of failure hold me back, the stream wouldn't exist. And that's what I see with women. They let the fear of failure hold them back. And like Edison said with the light bulb, I had thousands of failures, and every one of those failures led me up to the eventual light bulb I made. And that's what men do. We travel from one section of our life to the next, and if we fail, we learn from that, and then we do it again, and we do it again, and finally we settle into a spot where we're doing something we like to do, and we're happy with, and we can do. Now I was thinking about the critics and everything. When you're doing something, if you're a writer, if you're an artist, or if a producer or something like that, you're going to have critics, and you're going to have major critics in the media world. And if you're fearful of that too, and you let that hold you back, oh, these critics are going to hate me. That's not misogyny. That's just your fear coming out in life. Your fear holding you back, and you procrastinating because of fear. And we all know that experience. Sometimes jobs and sometimes things in life seem overwhelming. I used to say when I was a millwright that I'd walk into a building or a shop or something, and sometimes we were dealing with machines that were bigger than houses, and we had to move these machines and put these machines in places, and then wire these machines and start them up. And some of them were rather huge, big as buildings. And when you first walk in, you're just looking at it. You have a shaft laying over there and a part laying over there, and the shaft's as big as a car. And you say, man, this is overwhelming. And if I walked out at that point and said, no, that job's too big for me, I can't do it, I would have been cheating myself out of doing that. I find with most things in life, men will take that first step forward. I grab the impact wrench. I grab some of those big bolts, and I say, let's lift this up. Let's put that shaft into the space. Let's get the bearings in there. We're going to have to get those bearings in. And we're going to have to heat them up to 300 degrees so we can slide the shaft through. And I know that one. And we start putting the machines together. Some machines were simpler. They just wired together, and some machines were hard, but they were all huge. And if you get overwhelmed by it, and I think that's that thing there, that thing that holds people back from doing big things. Uh, I know you get a picture of a bridge and they say, you get like 30 contractors together and welders, and you're all looking at it and you go, we got to build that bridge. That's it. Yeah. But the first step is, man, just starting. Take that first step forward and saying, well, let's get these beams over here. Let's get these. And there's usually generally an alpha male or a male that's done it before, has experience and everything, and says, here's what we got to do. We just got to start building this thing. And that takes one step forward. And each one guy's like, you go get some I-beams, you go get some rivets, you start welding, you start doing your thing. We're going to need a lot of things together here. And if men didn't take that one step forward, then them things wouldn't get built. Buildings wouldn't get built. Bridges wouldn't get built. And I know it looks like an overwhelming task when you look at some of these things that we do. Men build beautiful, grand things, some dude even built a Taj Mahal so he can impress this girl. That's a big simp, wasn't it? But yeah, them are the things we do. And like always, but that thing that we do, that thing, that male, that okay, I'm going into this thing that males do, I find that most females don't have. And when they ask themselves the question of what held them back in between the Byzantine era, during the philosophy era, what kept them from writing books, what kept them from sharing their experiences, strength, hopes, and knowledges of this world that we live in, was simply fear. That same kind of fear that men go forward into, women step back into. And there was some great scientific studies about the way men and women perceive and fear and danger. Men generally step back from danger, look at it, examine it, figure out how to beat it, and then go at it like a bull. And women will step forward to it. If you ever notice, when women are driving, if there's something happening next to them and something scares them, they'll actually pull towards it. And it's a scientific truth about the way women react with things. They pull towards things. They get closer to things. If a male scares them, they try to get closer to that scary male, that scary thing. And I think that we can see that. We can see that in a lot of the arts and philosophies and everything. Women generally, they try to get closer to it, but sometimes they're afraid to jump into it. They're afraid to jump into the writing. They're afraid to jump. And I see more female writers now, more really bland female writers now than ever today. But I still don't see a lot of female philosophers. I think between Hannah Arendt and Ayn Rand, that's about it. And I see a lot of philosophical historians, which could tell you, female philosophical historians that can tell you the history of philosophy from Plato to Foucault, but men generally delve into the more the hairy things like Kuhn did and Rawls did and Foucault did. We ask questions about the metaphysics, and I really don't like metaphysics. I don't like metaphysics. What about the world we live in? What about justice? What about relationships? What about love? Is that real? And we ask those questions, and that's what Mgtow is doing. We're the philosophers of those sort of things. Is love real? We're just being metaphysical philosophers. We say, no, that's not real. That's just, scientifically, it's just chemicals running around in your brain and you get hooked. And there is no difference between being with a friend and being with a girlfriend. There should be no metaphysical difference in the way you perceive things in life. Two girls, one's your lover, one's your friend. You perceive the same things in life. If a brick falls from the ceiling and you perceive that event, that would be the tower analogy. Things didn't go any differently. There was nothing between this woman and this woman that happened differently in the world. That's common knowledge. So I mean, that tells you, I mean, love is basically a chemical reaction. We know that in Mgtow, and it can't possibly be in the real world or the world of nature and the natural world. There's not, you just can't show me that there's this metaphysical beam or this, beam of electrons that flow from one person to the next. But if you asked people in the blue pill world, they said we have a connection. We have a connection. There's this thing that goes back and forth between us. We're connected. She's my soulmate. I heard that line from a young man this week. She's my soulmate, or she said he's my soulmate, and no one knows the soulmate like I do. And obviously she just wanted something, whatever it was, she just wanted it at that time. So thanks for joining me. I don't think Shingles is going to join us today, but if anybody else wants to come in, I can send out some invites and stuff, and I'll do that on the blah 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 blah. The Hangouts still works great in the background for sending out invites and stuff like that. Let me send Whiskey one if Whiskey wants to come in, and bloop. And it's a great Saturday just to bullshit and sit around and talk. And let me send my friend Misanthropic Altruist. Paste. There we go. There we go. Ooh, that's my one finger typing. So a lot of times in life, we look at feminism and we look at that. That's true. We look at those things, and we have to. We as the Mgtow philosophers, our part of our job is to sit and we critically analyze it for truth, and that's our part. That's what we do here in Mgtow. We critically analyze. Feminism and the new feminism and sciences and stuff like that. If it, it's, have you ever been held back? That's what I say. Well, you're gonna have to show me. You're gonna have to show me some proof that they've been held back, and then I'll look at that and go, well, yeah, there was a group of guys at one time that held you back out of writing and reading, but I can look at most of the artists, most of the female artists from the Benson, like I said, from 14, maybe 448 or something like that to now, and look in some of the things that they have said. And I think Mary Wollstonecraft was, when she wrote Mary, the first feminist book, was she was pleasantly surprised how there was really nothing holding them back. I think gynocentrism takes over at that point. Gynocentrism being the propensity to err on the side of the female, no matter what it is. And if she wrote a book, all the guys would be like, "Woo!" Especially if she's sexy and curvy, all the guys would be like, "Woo, yeah, you did a good job." It's like we do with when they take out the garbage for the first time. You treat them like a child. You're like, "Ooh, good job." Good job. But don't expect anything but after they do that, and maybe that's the part that scares them. After they do these things, there's going to be a critique. Every philosopher ever, every scientist ever, every guy that ever can, from John Milton to Michael Foucault, like I said, from back to Descartes and Plato and Socrates. You're going to be critiqued for your work. And maybe that's the scary part, being critiqued for your work. Let me move over here. I always mean to kind of go in the center, but I always end up going into the side. Now that looks a little better. I'm centered. centered in the universe. And so that was what I wanted to talk about today. And then I did want to talk about giving bad advice and Mgtow, which I seen this morning. Uh, I mean, that's a horrible thing to do. If you're a Mgtow producer and everything, you have a certain responsibility to the young kids and to give out the best advice you can. And then if that's advice of a sexual nature and everything, the only advice you can give on those things, I used to say this all the time, the only advice you should say on this is stay abstinent, go to school, and become the best you can. That's the best advice you can. Anytime you veer from that kind of advice, you're giving personal opinion on the way life works. And we have a professional obligation to the kids not to share bad advice to them. And I really I was listening to that this morning, and it was Hell by the Dashboard Lights, and he was telling the kids to get the worst grade. He actually said, get the worst grades you can do, graduate late, stay around and try to hit the women while you're there. And that was his advice. And that's horrible advice. That's the worst advice. I mean, that almost guarantees you no entrance to college and you'll be a pizza delivery boy. And I'm sure he enjoys his pizza delivery job and 40-year-old pizza delivery job with no future and everything. But hey, man, he can tell stories about the women's. No. I know that there's a sense of overwhelming need to do that when you're a young man. But I mean, your future is your future, and that's all you got in this life. And not graduating from high school because you wanted to hang around with the cool kids or the goth kids or that was horrible advice. And we do have a responsibility in here, and pizza delivery jobs are done by robots in 20. Yeah. Yeah, I was so excited one day that I ordered a pizza from Pizza Hut or something, and they sent me it was all internet digital and everything, and they sent me a message saying, do I want my pizza delivered by a self-driving car? And I said, hell yes, I do. They gave me the instructions, and then some kid pulled up, and I says, man, you are not a self-driving car. I said, I was waiting for that self-driving car or that drone to drop my pizza off, because that would have been damn cool. And but maybe that'll come by 2025. I think they kind of failed on that, but that's with all technology. Uber failed on it. They've been running those experiments in California that haven't been going well because they have had some accidents. And how can you account for traffic? I mean, I ride my bike every day, and I'm on this, it's a 100-pound bike less. It's a 70-pound bike, and I'm 250 pounds, and me versus a car, I lose every time. But you have to take an account for everything that's going on around you while watching your rear view mirror and everything, because basically the world is screwed up and people do the damnedest things. And I was just thinking, with a self-driving car, how can the self-driving car take into account a million compilations a second and take into account what the stupid idiot next to him is going to do? And I mean, that would be an area of life where intuitive metaphysics comes into play with human beings. I had a car the other day. I was looking in my rear view mirror, and there was this big white hillbilly truck with the big pipes coming up. And I kind of knew where he lived, and he was coming up on the side of me. He was going to go around me. And I was like, oh man, I better slow down. So I slowed down and let him around. And right when he got to the next street, he turned in right in front of me like I wasn't even there. But looking in the rear view mirror and seeing the jackass that was coming up, I knew what he was going to do because I'm human. And he's got a big hillbilly truck with side pipes going up the side. And he thinks he thinks he owns the road, and I knew that's what he was going to do. But that's a, where we human beings are a little bit intuitive by and it's basically experience would tell me that's the way a jackass 22-year-old kid and a big white truck with side pipes going on it. That's the way he's going to act. He doesn't care if he runs me over. He thinks he owns the road. So intuitivity, I guess that's that's what they say women have. They're more intuitive in some and in sciences they have this intuitive thing, and I think in basic respect to science, anything intuitive would actually be you just have experience with that thing. If you go up and down a road every morning, you kind of know who's going to be coming out, what that road's going to do. That's from experience. You experience, and then just because you're going down that road and you think, oh well, that jackass always comes out at this time and he's going to pull right out in front of me like he always does, and then you go, your buddy may be sitting in the car at that point. You go, I'm going to slow down. This jackass is going to pull out in front of me. And he does, like he always does. And your buddy goes, wow, you're so intuitive. And I say, no, not really. I just know that the jackass is going to do that. That's experience in life. And men in general gather all that little experiences that they have in life and they witness in life. And that's what in Mgtow, I guess I was going up to this point in Mgtow, experience has a lot to do with Mgtow. If you never experienced, being divorced, going through these things, or you never had a long line of female girlfriends and every one of them turned out disastrous, and then you look back and you go, geez, I kind of know what's coming this time. If I do that, I know what's coming. And that's the Mgtow, the intuitive Mgtow things that we talk about. Now that's, like I said, anything intuitive is opinion. It's my opinion that if I date, she's going to steal my wallet. She's going to try to change things in my house. And I know that from experience. Being a Mgtow, I know exactly what happens when a woman comes into your house. She starts changing things. She starts changing you. And some of the times they steal, and some of the times they just just yell all the time. And then them are things that I don't allow in my house. That's what makes me Mgtow. But it's nothing intuitive. There's no opinion about that. I've learned those things from experience. Now, these young guys that are coming around lately, the young guys that have been coming around, they generally don't have no experience in those natures, and they still want to learn that. And I'm telling you want to learn that, but you want to learn it in a safe way. I mean, you put some training wheels on and maybe put some, do it in a safe way, because there's safer ways to learn these things now, especially with Me Too around and rape accusations and unplanned pregnancy can ruin your life. I would say if you want to experiment with these things, that generally kind of excludes you from Mgtow, but at least do it safely. If that's my 200 miles and a fake ID thing, you want to ride 200 miles from your house, get yourself a fake ID, go into the next state and do all that you want to do, and then leave and forget about it. Go back to college and tell the guys about your life experiences and how those things worked out for you, and that's fine. But that's generally every blue pill guy that I know between the age of 18 and 30. That's what they're doing. That's not Mgtow, is what I'm saying. Mgtow is something totally. If this is the norm and these are what all the blue pill guys are doing, then Mgtow must be something different if that's the norm. But that's what I see. The norm has become trying to engulf the norm wants to take over Mgtow, and all the normies are coming in, and they're going to show all the guys. They're these young kids. They just laugh at them. It's like, man, I'm hitting it and I'm quitting it. And then Mike the Mgtow monk was going on about his newest conquests and everything. That ain't Mgtow, and you ain't a monk. And every guy in the world is doing the same thing you're doing, so that makes you a normie. It doesn't make you red pill. You got to think out of the box to be red pill. And if every guy in the world's acting like a frat boy and hitting it and quitting it, and that's become the new norm, then the new red pill must be Mgtow. And the only red pill you're going to get around here from this guy is say, man, try to stay abstinent, stay away from that shit, and try to do a little better in your life and take a deep introspection down into your soul and ask yourself some questions about what they're saying about us out there, and whether some of that stuff is true, and whether I can get that under control and become a better person. That's Mgtow. I mean, Mgtow's just saying, no, I don't want to involve. I know what happens in that minefield. I tried to walk through that minefield once, and the mine started blowing up, and I got my ass all bent up, and that's what happens when you walk through a minefield, and that was the analogy that we give for those things. Anytime you get married, marriage is just walking through a minefield, and it's going to explode. One of them are going to explode at a certain time, and I can pretty much tell you that. Doing what these new boys around here are doing is the PUA, hit it and quit it, and calling themselves a monk. That's milk apple. You're just being what is that word that I use? You're just being fucking contrary. And you're being contrary is starting to bother me. And if I'd seen him in real life, I'd probably smack the shit out of that skinny little fuck. Because I'm sure if he met me in real life, he would just walk the other way. Most people do when they meet me. But this new crowd, they're just funny. From all of them came around at the same time. And I started off with Hell by the Dashboard Lights this morning. And he's such a jackass that it almost just boggles my mind what he was saying. And then there's the new, every one of them called themselves, you got to wonder about that. Every one of them called themselves monks, from Hammerhand to Mr. Elite to Mike the Mgtow monk to all those guys, all the jackasses that came around. All of a sudden, they're monks in their lives, and they're Mgtow monks. But most of them were just, I don't know what they were. They weren't Mgtow, and it was very clear that they weren't Mgtow. And I mean, that's it. There's entryism. Some people use, I think the alt-right used entryism to come into Mgtow. And what do I got here? They want to get a popular vote going, so they want to push their political opinions on and that stuff, and that's okay. They can do that on their own, but we don't need that in Mgtow. We got too many problems in Mgtow trying to figure out these things, the metaphysics of the world, how the world really works, how females really work. When you're told lies most of your life, you got to refigure this stuff out. And from men 8 to 80, at some point in their life, they're going to have to figure it out, and or get hit over and over and over again. There'll be that guy at 60 years old looking for another woman because he's on his third divorce, and he never learned that, hey, that's the new modern world we live in. I mean, don't have, like I always say, I got no expectation at all from them. I have no expectation, no disappointment. And That's what I expect out of this world. I have little or no expectation out of most Mgtows either. If I don't have any, and I'll use that because there are so many little bitches around here that's crazy. Uh, I mean, I got no expectation for them, and I treat them just like I treat a feminist or a woman because, man, when you disappoint me so many times, I got no expectation, no disappointment. Uh, you guys just keep doing that. One thing I will expect that you'll end up wrecked up like most men that go down that road, and I get to watch it. That'll be pleasurable for me because I will laugh my ass off. But 10 to 1, they always leave before that. So I don't get to witness the horror show because I'm sitting back on the Mgtow bench, and man, if you've been told 1,000 times what not to do in Mgtow, uh, and you go and do that to prove us wrong, and you get racked up, you get herpes like Gemma got herpes, and you get herpes, or you get racked up, or you got an unwanted child on the way, and I told you 1,000,000 times, I'm not the jackass, really. But this new bunch is a special new bunch of millennials, and man, they are special. And I suppose nothing's really changed in the world because that's the way guys acted when I was growing up too. I mean, some guys grew up poor and they had responsibility right off the bat when they were 18. I was a poor Irish child. I had responsibility right off the bat at 15. I mean, I mean, your destination in life wasn't, you didn't get to pick that kind of just happened to you. And some guys have moms and dads that buy them the new car, and they get to go to college, and that's a pretty cool thing. But I didn't have that, and I had to learn the harsh truths about the world and the way it was, and about working right off the bat. If that's your destination, just embrace it and try to do the best job you can. So maybe your children won't have to go through that. But with divorce and everything, most people's children will. And you ever think about, with the 70, 72%, 80, 86% divorce rate now, is that government sponsored? And I think it is, because it's basically the government. It's their laws. I mean, really, if it was my laws, I would throw away marriage and say shut down all those. There's those halls of marriage. You can do it in the Catholic Church because you have the right to, if you want to, but don't bring that bullshit in the government. Uh, I would shut down all that shit because that's a clear violation of church and state, and but they make billions of dollars, the marriage institution, the divorce institution, and then they get slaves, and slaves are great because every society needs 20 to 30% of slaves. These stoic guys that are running around saying, "Hey, I'm gonna beat them odds." Yeah, every jackass for the last 20 years that I know thought that he was gonna beat those odds. And still, I look out and examine the world that I live in, metaphysics, and I say, and I can count how many of them succeeded. I don't have a single friend that succeeded in that. So, simply by experience, or call it intuitive, Mgtow intuitivity, that shit ain't gonna work. And there's reasons why it's not going to work. Things started changing way back in the 60s. Um, so I've been going about 53 minutes, and it doesn't look like anybody's going to show up today. My usual podcasts are about an hour, but I forgot to send Riff. I didn't know Riff. Some days let their offspring a better world. Some generation, left their offspring a better world. I wish I could have did that, but I had to. I was one of those. I was one of those guys that the late 1990s and 2000s came around, and I got the rug pulled out from me because before that it was definitely a traditional world where those things shouldn't happen, and the goal was not to make it happen. And all of a sudden, the divorce rate shot up, and I missed it. But I didn't miss it, that's for sure. I got my my money's worth on that. My money's worth of stoic suffering. And if I would have known before, I would have never done it, obviously. But these kids nowadays, they got the advantage of Mgtow and pretty much men's rights and PUA. We all say the same thing. Man, don't do that. Don't get married. That's a trap. No, that's a trap. But there's much more and different ideologies about that. Um, the PUAs have decided that that V is not where babies, somehow metaphysically, that's not where babies come from. Yeah, they'll all get to find out that that is where babies come from. And I was right about that. I knew that one. I learned that in sixth grade. Yeah, my sixth grade teacher let me touch her. I think that was rape, but hey, you know how that goes. Um, but Jesus Christ, it's a horrible world we live in. But yeah. I mean, we got different philosophies about this thing, and some guys, and it's the same old thing. Some guys think they're going to beat those odds. Those odds are about 86%. If you're bareback in it, you're going to have a kid sooner or later, and those odds are going to beat you. I was bareback in it for a while. Then I had my daughter, my first kid. And I was like, whoa, how'd that happen? And she looked at me like, are you fucking serious? Because I was one of those 22, 23, 24. I can't remember, 28 years old at that time. Uh, People that just didn't know that that split V, that's where babies come from. Somehow that evaded me. Geez, or you know what? I was pretty much trying to bias that fact and say that, I can beat the odds on that, is what I was doing. And we all do that. I'm going to beat the odds. And that's what marriage is. Every guy that gets married is going, man, I'm going to have a happy life with my special other that I'm connected with. And there's this metaphysical, this electrical connection and between us. And I'm going to beat those odds. No, you're not. Not in this day and age. I mean, that's pretty sad. I think it's about up to about 92%. And if you do get married, you should expect at some point that there's going to be a divorce that happen. If that surprises you, you're just maybe one of those jackasses I talk about. Work lurk. Are you work lurking in there, whiskey? Yeah. Yeah, this was impromptu. I didn't know what I was going to talk about today. I just wanted to try out the StreamYard and see if everything was okay and how it worked and the quality of the video. And it looks pretty good. Now I'll have to look on YouTube after this. And I'm right about at my hour point today. Shingles was supposed to come in, but he fell asleep. And I was going to try the add buttons so I can add two split screen. And but everything looks cool, and I guess the sound sounds pretty good. I suppose I'm hoping it's going through my Yeti, and that's all I wanted to talk about. Maybe a few things, and talk about the shape of Mgtow, and what Mgtow really is, rather than what these jackass kids. And like I says, if the obvious is that 90% of the society is running around like frat boys and hitting quiddits to pretty much what they're doing anyways, and every kid goes through that, or that's the norm. Mgtow is not the norm. We're the red pill, and the red pill is never the norm. It's a different sensibility. But they've tried to normalize Mgtow into their world, and it's never going to work because we're always going to pull away and say, "Stop it, you jackasses!" And like PUA, they'll start talking about long-term relationships in the sense of then they'll all end up getting married and then still saying they're PUAs, but they're just married and they found a special in the wall because their PUA worked out so well, which is just hypocrisy. So, so that was my broadcast today. I think I'm going to end it right on 1 hour. And thanks a lot for coming around. And thanks, God, for listening to my my opinion about the new Mgtow and everything. But that's not Mgtow, and that's what I'm saying. They can call themselves that, and you'll know them because they'll say, I have a right to be Mgtow. I have a right to call myself. And then on one end, they'll be calling themselves a monk while they're talking about hitting quitting it. And that's hypocrisy and that's milk apple. And I don't get it. And if I call them a jackass, that's fine because that's what they are. So, so thanks a lot for coming around. Thanks a lot for showing up. And most of all, man, most of all, I didn't even look. Oh, I know how to end it. I didn't even look to see how it ended. But most of all, men, thanks a lot for being Mgtow. And there is no true Scotsman in Mgtow. You know a Mgtow because he is a Mgtow. And he follows the rules of Mgtow. And there are Mgtow rules. And he just sounds like a Mgtow. And if he's sounding like a PUA, he's a PUA. And if he's sounding like an MRA, he's an MRA. And if he's dating or married or cohabitating or doing long-term, he ain't a pig Mgtow. He may be a pigtow or a jackass. And if he's testing that thing, he's not. You're allowed to say it. And you know what else he's not allowed to say? He's not allowed to say that he is a Mgtow just because he wants to be one. I want to be a baseball player. And if I call myself a baseball player, that still doesn't make me a baseball player. There's things I'd have to do. And that's just the rules of the universe, and that's metaphysics, the knowledge of the world we live in. So thanks a lot for coming around, and thanks a lot for being Mgtow most of all. Thanks a lot for being Mgtow. Mgtow.